9:30 p.m., February 1st, 1959. The tent was cut from the inside. 9 experienced ski hikers, deep in the desolate Ural Mountains, vanished into a frigid, unforgiving night. What followed was a discovery so baffling, so riddled with contradictions, that it has haunted investigators and armchair detectives for over 6 decades. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student, the group comprised 8 men and 2 women. Their ambitious goal was to reach Arorton Mountain, a formidable peak in the northern Urals, a Category Roman III winter expedition, the most difficult classification. The journey began innocently enough. On January 27, 1959, they departed from Vizhay, the last inhabited settlement, full of youthful optimism. One member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill with sciatica and was forced to turn back, a decision that saved his life. For days, they trekked through the harsh, snow-laden terrain. Their progress was slow, hampered by heavy snowfall and biting winds. Their last known campsite was established on the eastern slope of Khalat Siek Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language on February 1st. They were due to send a telegram back by February 12th. When no word arrived, initial concern gave way to alarm. A search party was dispatched on February 20th. What they found would challenge every assumption about survival and human behavior. On February 26th, the searchers located the group's tent, half buried in snow. It was a chaotic scene. The tent had been slashed open from the inside, a desperate escape route, suggesting an immediate and terrifying threat. Inside, personal belongings were scattered: boots, warm clothing, food. It was as if the hikers had fled in a sudden, urgent panic, leaving behind vital gear in sub-zero temperatures. The temperature that night was estimated to be around -25 to -30 degrees Celsius. Following footprints in the snow, the search party discovered the first 2 bodies, Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Dorshenko, near a cedar tree about 1.5 kilometers away. They were partially undressed, shoeless, and dressed only in underwear or thin clothing. Beneath the cedar, a small fire had been built, but it was clear it offered little warmth. Their hands were scraped and bruised, suggesting a frantic attempt to climb the tree, perhaps to escape something or to gain a better vantage point. 3 more bodies were found between the cedar tree and the tent: Dyatlov, Zinaida Kalmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. They appeared to be heading back towards the tent, suggesting a desperate, failed attempt to retrieve their gear. Their causes of death were hypothermia, yet the circumstances were anything but straightforward. Slobodin had a fractured skull. Dyatlov's face was contorted, one hand clutching a branch. Kalmogorova had severe bruising. It took 2 more months to find the remaining 4 hikers. They were discovered in a ravine, buried under 4 meters of snow, about 75 meters from the cedar tree. Their injuries were far more severe and deeply unsettling. Nikolai Thiborsk-Brignoles had a massive skull fracture. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov suffered extensive chest fractures, described as consistent with a high-impact collision, the force of a car crash. Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her jaw. Alexander Kolvatov also had multiple fractures. What was even stranger, several of the clothing items found on these 4 bodies, particularly Dubinina's and Zolotaryov's, showed signs of radiation, a detail that would ignite decades of speculation. The official Soviet investigation concluded that the hikers died from a compelling natural force. This vague explanation, combined with the bizarre injuries and the radiation, only fueled theories: a secret military test, a rare animal attack, or even something otherworldly. One prominent theory suggests an avalanche. A slab avalanche, occurring suddenly and silently, could explain the tent being cut from the inside, a desperate attempt to escape being buried. The initial hypothermia deaths could then follow. However, the terrain around Khalat Siek isn't typically prone to avalanches. The slope angle was too gentle, and there were no visible signs of a large snow slide. Furthermore, the tent was intact, not crushed, as one might expect from an avalanche. Another theory points to infrasound, low-frequency sound waves that can cause feelings of dread, panic, and even physical illness. A rare meteorological phenomenon, a Kármán vortex street, could have generated such waves from the wind interacting with the mountain. This could explain the inexplicable panic that drove them from their tent, scantily clad, into the freezing night. But it doesn't account for the severe internal injuries or the missing body parts. The puzzle remains stubbornly unsolved. The radiation found on the clothing has led to military involvement theories. Could the hikers have stumbled upon a secret Soviet weapons test? The area was reportedly used for rocket launches and could explain the strange orange spheres seen in the sky by other groups in the region. But if it was a military test, why were the bodies not removed or the incident thoroughly covered up? The investigation, while flawed by modern standards, was public enough to leave a trail of questions. The official files, however, remain largely classified. The most recent official Russian investigation, reopened in 2019, concluded in 2020 that an avalanche was indeed the cause, triggered by a combination of strong winds and the hikers' own actions of cutting into the slope to make their tent level. This, they argued, created a weak point. They posited that a rare type of slab avalanche, creeping snow, could have slowly built up pressure, eventually collapsing onto the tent. The subsequent struggle to escape the snow in the dark and cold led to the injuries and hypothermia. Yet even this detailed explanation leaves some questions unanswered. The missing tongue, the precise nature of the internal injuries, the radiation, these elements continue to fuel the enduring mystery, forever staining the name Dyatlov Pass. What other cold cases defy logical explanation?